There's a shaft, nice big shaft there, nicely cleaned. There's no particular issue with that. This lip on the end here is supposed to be there. On this end, there's like a bush which goes into the gearbox casing there. The shaft, this is looking into the transfer box end, goes into this hole and then bangs through with the gear on it. Slight issues I've identified so far. That's the original O-ring. That's the one that's supplied in the kit. Yes, not really the same size, is it? And bearing in mind that one of the issues with these gearboxes is that the gearbox oil can leak from here and into the transfer box. It can also leak from there, and also leaks up this shaft as well. Oh, I'm a pillock. Found it. Right, okay, so let's zoom in here. There was another box with all the gaskets and so forth in it, and it was still in there. Success! The bush has gone in. So basically, what I think has happened was there was a burr on the edge of the casing here, which when I measured stuff, it meant that it was about maybe 0.003 of a difference between the collar and the housing that was going into. Also, I found out that the fat end of the main idler shaft is exactly the same diameter, and that bush would fit arse end through the other end of this. So it did go through there. So all I did, having cleaned everything up, I just popped this in and just gave it a good, threw it in there, and it was enough to tap it into place. So now that is in place, I can put the rest of the reverse gear, its O-ring and the gear and so forth into place, and we can move on. Okay, so what's happening is the bush, once it's gone past the initial lip, is then free to drop right through. And you know, at the point that I'm doing this, the thread lock 651 hasn't bitten on it. So let me just smear some of this around inside the housing, which I'm just doing now. Oops, quite ganky stuff this. Let's let that go a little bit sticky, and then similarly with this. And this time what I'm going to do is I am going to position the shaft in. I am going to position the bearing on the shaft along with reverse gear. It's a bit of a fiddle, but it does go in. It's got needle rollers in there, you see. There it goes. So that's in. And then I'm going to position the support, the bush support on the other end of the shaft, but make sure it goes on square, which it hasn't quite at the moment, but it's not far off it. I think that is starting to seize up already. Right, so it's starting to go in. Right, so the shaft is going in now, so it seems to be a lot tighter. Let me take off the bolt and I'll get a slightly bigger drift. You can see the reverse gear here. What can I use? Probably use a socket, couldn't I? A socket here handy, I've got that one. Put things down for 2 minutes and they disappear quite rapidly in this shed. Slightly bigger socket, that one will probably do it. Is that going to fit? Yes, that fits. Let me move the gear back out of the way so I can see what is happening. Ow! What I might do is put the bolt back in there and support the socket on the bolt. That'll do. It's less likely to fall out now. I say less likely to fall out. going in like 0.5 millimetre at the bloody time. I might have to get something a bit more solid onto the socket. There we go, that's better. Now it's going in. I'm keeping an eye on where the threaded hole is as well. No, it's not there yet. No. 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 There comes the threaded hole. That is in. So, what I've now got is a bolt which goes into the threaded hole and stops this shaft from ever spinning. And the thread does up, which is good news. So all I need to do now is put some thread lock on that, and then I can put the selector rods in to stop the reverse gear shaft sliding backwards and forwards. So let's have a bit of Loctite on the thread. The thread locking, I'm just using 243, which is quite a useful thread lock. I bought a big can of it because I get through so much of this stuff. Especially on the aluminium casings and alloy casings, you tend to find quite a few of the threads are very, very low torque. Because of that, it needs to be locked into place. So let me just, there we go, a little bit of thread lock, and I can go back in there again, and we'll nip him up. Right, so all I'll do now is I'll just reach in and take the 1/2 inch bolt off the end of the shaft, and that can come out, because otherwise it's just a bolt that I don't really need in there. You normally have to use like a Land Rover special tool to withdraw that shaft, but I found that it's exactly the same thread as a number of other things. Just turning this over now, making sure there's no grit or crap in there from, there isn't. It's all looking fairly clean. Let me just, there's some oil in there. I just want to make sure that none of the oil has got any swarf. No, it's all looking lovely and clean. That's good. Right, okay, now back on its side again. Sorry, big sniff there. Back on its side again. Ah! Right, so we're on the side. There's reverse gear meshed with the lay shaft. I need to do that little fella up there. He's got the thread lock on him already. He looks like a 7/16, maybe a 3/8. No. Oh, heaven's sake, someone's retrofitted a metric bolt in there. Let's go for 10, which of course it is. So again, another sign that someone's played with this in an earlier life. On these early gearboxes, it should be a pin holding the reverse gear into place, and on the later boxes they introduced a threaded bolt, but the earlier boxes also have the sleeve. So this has got the early box, but someone's adapted the pinhole to take a bolt, which it now does. Nicely locked into place. So I could, at this point, put the side cover back on there, but I still need to put the selector rod in. So the selector rod for reverse gear comes in 2 parts. There's this part with a little slot on the end, which slots into the selector arm, into the side of the gear. So let me just pop him through. He lines up into there, and then I put the bolt through the side here and wire him into place. Now I've got a feeling there should be a washer in here as well, so I need to just double check that. But in theory then, once that's roughly in place, when the lever operates at the top here, it engages reverse gear on and off. You can see that I'm moving the selector at the top and it's sliding the gear at the bottom. And if the gearbox is moving at the time, then it becomes a bit of a Recognise that noise? That's what happens because it's straight cut, you see, and it won't go into reverse gear if the shaft's moving. Okay? And then your gearbox fills up with swarf. Right, okay, so next let's work out this this shaft.